What is an SSL handshake? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's talk about it. But before you can be initiated into the secret society of cybersecurity and learn the three-way handshake, you need to know what SSL and TLS actually are. SSL stands for Security Socket Layer and is a protocol that encrypts data transmitted between computers. And TLS, or Transport Layer Security, is essentially a newer version of SSL, but with better security practices. Did you know that SSL actually doesn't exist anymore? The protocol is a bit dated as it was made back in 1995, and it was depreciated way back when and has been replaced with TLS. But the name SSL is so catchy and so bussin', as the kids say, we just keep using it. So just know that in typical usage, SSL is actually referring to TLS or some other form of security protocol. Speaking of protocols and security, let me tell you some bad news. There is no such thing as a cloud. Cloud storage is literally just somebody else's computer. Nobody is actually sending the photos of your cat or what you ate last night for dinner up into a cumulonimbus. It just doesn't happen. We hear words like internet, cloud, servers, serverless servers, or whatever. But overly simplified, the entire internet is just a bunch of cables connecting your computer to somebody else's computer. So when you are connected to the internet, you are sending data, sometimes very personal data, through a lot of cables and through a lot of other people's computers. And that is very useful, but it is also a massive security risk. For example, when you're purchasing something online, you are sending your credit card information, date of birth, and current address through a lot of other people's computers. Now, call me old-fashioned, but that sounds a little risky. This is where SSL comes in. SSL offers a few layers of protection by encrypting data sent between the server and the end user, making it a bit more secure. You can tell at a glance if a server is using SSL by looking at the URL. If it's just HTTP, it's unsecure. If it's using HTTPS, the S stands for secure and is using some form of encryption. So how does SSL or TLS actually work? When you visit a website that uses SSL, your browser and the website server engage in what's called a handshake to establish a secure connection between the two. The security handshake is a complex process that involves several steps and that will vary depending on what type of server and client device you are using. But the main thing that we need to know is that SSL works to ensure the communication between the browser and the server is encrypted and secure. Here's a bird's eye view of what happens in that handshake. The security handshake begins when the user's browser sends out a client hello message to the server. This message includes information about the browser, the operating system, and the encryption algorithm that the client can support. The server then receives that client hello message and based on the client's info will choose which type of encryption they will use going forward. By default, the server will choose the most powerful encryption that the browser, the user device, and the server can support. This is why you shouldn't use sketchy or discontinued web browser. I'm looking at you, hardcore Internet Explorer fans. It's time to move on. Once that's done and your tears have all dried up, the server responds to the client hello message with a server hello message. This message includes information about the server and the selected encryption algorithm that will be used. The server also sends its digital SSL certificate, which contains its domain name, certificate authority, and the public key that will be used for encryption. The client's browser then checks the server's digital SSL certificate to ensure that it is valid and issued by a trustworthy certificate authority, one who signed or vouches for that particular SSL certificate. Side note for all my site owners: 1, you will need an SSL certificate, and 2, because of how fast bad actors can work their magic, your SSL certificate will expire and needs to be changed after a short period of time, typically every 90 days. Any modern browser will pretty much go out of its way to stop users from connecting to a site that has an expired SSL certificate. So consider yourself warned and make sure that your SSL is up to date. Now, back to the handshake. If the browser finds that the certificate is valid, the browser generates a random session key and encrypts it with the server's public key for the certificate. That encrypted session key is then sent back to the server, and the server decrypts the session key using its own private key and verifies that the session key matches the one that was generated by the browser before. If the session key is valid, the server then generates a finished message and sends it off to the user. The browser then sends a finished message of its own back to the server, which includes a message digest of all the previous message exchanged during the handshake. If both the server and browser have successfully verified each other's messages, a secure connection is established, and all subsequent communications between the browser and server will be encrypted using that session key. That's a brief summary of how SSL handshakes work. There is more to it, but for most people, that's deep enough. We have more on our blog on this subject if it interests you. Check the description box down below if you're interested. So when should you use SSL? SSL should be used pretty much all the time, but especially whenever sensitive information is transmitted online. This includes obvious information like credit card information and social security numbers, but also includes personal information such as passwords, username, PINs, forms, email addresses, home addresses, phone numbers. Anything and everything that is unique to your users should be encrypted. You get the idea. So how do you get SSL? First, you need to get what's called an SSL certificate. An SSL certificate is a unique digital certificate that proves and authenticates the identity of a website and is used in the handshake to establish a secure connection between your computer and the server. SSL certificates are available in both free and paid versions. The free and easy way is to use Let's Encrypt. Let's Encrypt is a non-profit certificate authority that is trusted by web browsers and gives free SSL certificates to website owners. Pretty nice. Paid SSL certificates are issued by commercial certificate authorities, and with a quick Google search, you can find plenty of them. Free SSL certificates are an excellent option for websites that have low traffic and do not handle extremely sensitive information. They are also ideal for websites that are starting and need to keep costs low. However, free SSL certificates may not offer the same level of security as paid SSL certificates. Paid SSL certificates are recommended for websites that handle sensitive information such as credit card numbers and personal data. They offer higher levels of security and come with warranties and insurance policies, which is a very nice feature just in case you get hacked. Therefore, if you run a medium to large e-commerce website that performs lots of online transactions, maybe a paid solution is right for you. I can't tell you which one is right for you and your use case, but I can tell you that if you can't afford a paid version, at least get a free version, because it's free and it works. But whatever you decide to do, you should be monitoring your site and make sure that it is always secure with a tool like Sematext Synthetics. With our tools, you can be sure that your users are securely connected to your site by monitoring your SSL certificate's validity. You can also run speed tests from anywhere around the globe to make sure that your site is not only safe, but is also technically outperforming your competitors. Link to a free trial down in the description box below. If you like this video, be sure to give it a like. If you want to learn more, consider subscribing as we are always making new tech content. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next video. Keep monitoring.